The following is a real account of our experience in the rural coffee region of Colombia over the last several months. This all began in January, and it has taken us until very recently to uncover the full extent of the localized version of the legends surrounding La Llorona and piece together the experiences we have been having. We are thoroughly freaked out. We had just moved into our house, a secluded finca tucked into the hills near Rio Espejo where the trees drip mist and the river never sleeps. It was the kind of place you imagine as peaceful, fertile, a place to start again. My partner was 4 months pregnant, and we were excited but cautious, still adjusting to the rhythms of the land and the quiet. It started in the first week. Late at night, while we slept upstairs, her mother, brother, and sister, who were staying with us at the time, began to hear something. A voice. A woman's voice, faint but urgent, floating in from just beyond the house. "Ayadame, help me." It didn't come every night, but it came enough. First once, then again, and by the second week, they had heard it 3 times, always around midnight to 3 a.m., always when the night was heavy with fog and the river hummed louder than usual. They said it wasn't a scream. It wasn't loud, it was worse than that. It was soft, pained, and human. At first, they thought it was my partner calling for help from upstairs. After assuring them it wasn't her, they would look outside, thinking maybe someone was lost, maybe hurt. But there was never anyone there. The trees stood still, the night kept breathing, the voice faded away. Then came the second week. That night, my partner began to have sudden, severe pain. Cramping that felt like contractions. We were terrified. It was far too early for labor. We didn't know what to do. We were upstairs, focused completely on her. And for reasons I still can't explain, we didn't have our phones with us. They were downstairs, forgotten in the rush of fear. We thought we had ridden it out. By morning, the pain had eased. We were exhausted but relieved. Until we spoke to the security guard at the front gate of our conjunto residential. He asked us what had happened the night before. We said nothing. Why? And he told us. An ambulance came to your house. Around 1 a.m. someone called from here, from your property, said there was a woman in distress. But we hadn't called. No one in the house had. And yet the ambulance arrived, lights flashing, knocking at the gate. Because we didn't answer his call, the security guard refused to let them enter. After waiting, they turned around and left, confused. We were stunned. That same night, the voice had been heard again by her family, closer this time, almost under the window again. Ayadame. It wasn't until we started asking around recently, neighbors, guards, even the older people in the nearby town, that we began to understand and put all of the pieces together. We were told very plainly, "That's La Llorona. You live near the river now. Pregnant women, crying children, and pain draw her in like blood in the water." But what's most terrifying to us is that here, in this part of Quindio, especially near Rio Espejo and La Tabaida, the stories go deeper. She doesn't just cry by rivers anymore. She doesn't just appear in white veils. They say La Llorona has learned how to use the modern world. There are stories of phones ringing and no one on the other end but weeping, baby monitors catching whispers, emergency services receiving calls from homes where no one made them, and just like us, ambulances showing up to rural houses in the night, responding to a cry for help that no human ever gave. Some believe she's not just a spirit anymore. She's a pattern, a force that clings to sorrow and technology alike. A kind of ghost intelligence, using whatever tools she can to get past the walls of a home, to be let in. And they say if you respond to her voice, if you open the door even out of kindness or confusion, you give her permission to enter. We didn't hear her that night. We didn't open the door. But she tried. And maybe because we didn't answer, our baby is still safe, at least for now. Our daughter is 6 weeks old now, and she is still trying to get in. At least now we know what we are up against. And we can't wait to move away from the river. We didn't stay in Ontario that time very long. We would eventually move back, but I would be in high school by then. So my mother moved my brothers and me to Nyssa, Oregon. Again, not far from Ontario or Vail. This time we moved in with my aunt and my cousins in a two-story house on the outskirts of town. It was mustard yellow with coops and stables and a few extra acres of land. It was a beautiful house in the country and I loved it. Mom had a friend who needed a place to house her horses, which was even more exciting for me. I love horses. Trust me, we'll get to why that is important later. I hadn't had another experience in Ontario after the woman, so I was letting my guard down. I was less afraid of things going bump in the night. It helped that my aunt and grandmother started talking about witches, magic, and spirits. So, now I had an outlet to understand what was going on with me. The first time I stepped into the house, I knew something was wrong. I didn't like it and I told my mom as much. She just shook her head and said that I would live. I really hate it when people say that, especially to a child who can see and hear things that nobody else can. We got all of the boxes into the house and separated them between the rooms. Like the greenhouse in Vail, this house had a basement. Unlike the greenhouse, it also had a cellar. Like the greenhouse, I was terrified of the basement, but that cellar. I had never in my life felt anything like what I felt down in that cellar. The weirdest part of the cellar was that part of it was sectioned off with an iron gate. That part felt cursed. My mom and my aunt thought that it was funny that I described the cellar like that. I did not, nor do I now. There was something seriously wrong with that house. That first night, we all decided to sleep in the living room as it had gotten too late to keep us kids up to put our beds together. Now, my oldest cousin is the same cousin who left me in the woods back in North Carolina where I met Wyatt, her brother, who has unfortunately passed away, was my older brother's age and had cerebral palsy. I was always really close with him and was the only kid in my family who would willingly help take care of him, so we had him on one of the couches, my mom on the other, and my aunt and us other kids on the floor. I was right next to my aunt and my cousin on the couch in case anything happened and she needed help with him in the middle of the night. We had just gotten settled and were talking about nothing in particular when we all heard silverware moving in the kitchen. Mind you, we hadn't put anything away yet, so something had to be moving the box that held the silverware. We all looked towards the kitchen/dining room, waiting to see if we could hear it again. Nothing, so my aunt and mom laughed it off as just a random noise. Nothing for us kids to worry about. Now, I was the youngest at 10, my older brother and my cousin with cerebral palsy were a year older than me and were 11. My oldest brother and our oldest cousin were both 13. Mom told us all to just get some sleep as we had to start school the next morning, as we had moved in the middle of the school year. I, however, wasn't about to let it go. I stayed awake as long as I could, listening to the house around me. I made mental notes of what sounds I was positive were the house settling and which were not. The footsteps I heard coming up from the cellar into the basement and then into the kitchen were not, nor was the man who appeared in the doorway. I should have been used to seeing ghosts by this point, but this man, I don't think he was fully human. There was something wrong with him. I can't explain it. It was like he was looking into each of us, trying to find the weakest link. I don't know why, but when his eyes landed on my cousin on the couch, I coughed, forcing him to look at me instead. There was no way in hell I was going to let this thing even think of attacking him. It grinned widely when it noticed me. Funny thing is, I grinned back. I don't know if I was too afraid to be afraid or if I had just kicked into protection mode. I caught myself starting to giggle as I watched the man come closer. I drew a line in my mind between the man and my family. Amazingly, he stopped at it. He growled at me, but I grinned again. I told him that this was no longer his domain, but mine, and he did not have my permission to even be there. I imagined the line moving back to the doorway of the kitchen and watched in awe as he was pushed back. Then I pushed farther, picturing the door to the basement. I don't know if I actually pushed him to the basement door, but I heard it slam suddenly, which of course woke up the rest of my family. Mom and my aunt ran to the kitchen and flung open the basement door. Mom called down, saying that if there was someone down there, she would shoot them. Yes, we had a gun. It was only a pellet gun, but in Mom's mind, they didn't need to know that. They went down to check the rooms down there for anyone. When they found nobody, they decided that they must not have shut the basement door properly and that a gust of wind had hit it. I found that funny, as there was no wind to be heard. Again, they told us that it was nothing and to go back to sleep. Knowing what I knew, I didn't get much sleep that night and was wholly unprepared for school the next morning. I wonder now what would have happened had I not stayed awake most of the night that night. What I do know now, though, is that no matter what, I will go up against anything to protect my family. And whatever that man was, I wasn't going to let him or anything like him near my cousin. That was the first time I had actually fought against a spirit or whatever he was. But unfortunately for me, it would not be the last. I was out riding my quad one afternoon, just cruising around the back roads near the edge of the forest. My mind kept drifting to that old house hidden deep in the woods. I'd seen it before from a distance, but something about it always stuck with me. Like it didn't belong, or maybe like it had been forgotten for too long. This time, I decided to head toward it. The path opened into a clearing, and there it was, weathered, quiet, surrounded by thick trees. The main door was blocked by debris. Fallen branches, old metal sheets, and other junk like someone had tried to keep people out or something in. Next to the house was a small outbuilding, kind of like a shed or an old barn. There was also an outdoor toilet, the kind you'd expect from a century ago. I decided to check it out. Inside the barn, I found some strange stuff. Old black and white photos of people I didn't recognize. Some oddly personal ones too. A few of them looked like nudist photos, and one was what looked like an invitation to a striptease event. It was all yellowed, decades old, maybe even from the early 1900s. Honestly, I wasn't sure what to make of it. Maybe it was just something weird that used to go on in the village back then. Alongside those were family portraits, faded, torn at the edges. They looked like they were from the late 1800s. A man, a woman, 2 children, all staring blankly, like they knew something I didn't. Something about the place gave me a really uneasy feeling. Not like danger exactly, just wrong. Behind the barn, there was a small trail leading deeper into the woods. I thought about taking it with the quad, but something about it didn't sit right with me. It looked like a place I wasn't meant to go, so I left it for the time being. I went into the old toilet just to check it out. It was dusty and decayed but otherwise normal. Nothing weird in there. At that point, I shrugged the whole thing off as just an old abandoned property, probably forgotten by whoever used to live there. But that wasn't the last time I visited. The next time I went back, everything was different. One of the windows in the house was shattered. The trail that had once been narrow was now completely torn up, like something huge had moved through it. Trees bent, brush flattened, rot everywhere. It felt unnatural. Not like time passing, but like something had forced its way through. Inside the barn, everything had been moved. It looked like something or someone had wrecked the place. Not in a casual, messy way, but violently. Tools were thrown around. The ground was torn up, like a bulldozer had gone through it. But there were no tire tracks, no signs of vehicles, just chaos. And that family photo I saw the first time, it was gone. I searched for it. I checked all over, but it wasn't there anymore. Not just moved, gone. No one lives there. I've been by several times and never seen another soul. The village nearby is practically empty. No signs of life, no signs that the house has an owner. It's abandoned. But every time I go back, something has changed. Things are moved, damaged, or just missing. I still don't know what's going on out there. Before the window was broken, before the barn got wrecked, and agree it's not normal. Something isn't right about that place.